Have you been told you only use 10% of your brain or that video games make you violent? Think again. Today, we're debunking the most common psychological myths that almost everyone believes. These misconceptions about how our minds work are often repeated but rarely examined. Let's separate fact from fiction and dive into the truth behind these 7 psychological myths, exploring the science that reveals the fascinating reality of our brains and behavior. Now let's address a particularly harmful myth that people with mental illness are inherently violent. This is not only untrue, but it's a dangerous generalization fueled by fear and misunderstanding. The vast majority of individuals with mental illness are not violent, and in fact, they are more likely to be victims of violence themselves. Think of it this way: just like physical health, mental health exists on a spectrum. We all experience moments of stress, sadness, or anxiety, but that doesn't mean we're all prone to violence. In fact, research consistently shows that there is no direct causal link between mental illness and violence. Certain factors like substance abuse or exposure to trauma can increase the risk of both violence and mental health issues. However, that doesn't mean one causes the other. Instead of perpetuating harmful stereotypes, we need to foster empathy and understanding. When we stigmatize mental illness, we create barriers to seeking help and perpetuate a cycle of fear and misunderstanding. Imagine a society where mental health is treated with the same care and attention as physical health. So the next time you hear someone make a sweeping generalization about mental illness and violence, remember this: it's simply not true. You've likely heard the statistic 93% of communication is non-verbal. It's been repeated in countless self-help books and presentations, but it's simply not true. This myth stems from a misinterpretation of research on communication, particularly a study by Albert Mehrabian. Mehrabian's work focused on how people interpret messages of feelings and attitudes, not factual information. His findings highlighted the importance of tone of voice and facial expressions when conveying emotions. However, this doesn't mean words are insignificant. Imagine trying to explain quantum physics or the intricacies of black holes using only charades. Words are essential for conveying complex ideas, sharing information, and building nuanced understanding. Think about the last time you read a book, listened to a podcast, or had a deep conversation. Words were the primary vehicle for transmitting ideas and emotions. While body language can enhance or contradict our words, it's not the dominant force in most communication. The reality is, communication is a complex dance between verbal and non-verbal cues. We use a combination of words, tone, gestures, and facial expressions to convey meaning. So, while paying attention to body language is valuable, don't underestimate the power of words. This myth has been a hot topic for decades, fueled by concern over violent video games and their potential impact on young minds. But the truth, as always, is more nuanced. While some studies have shown a correlation between playing violent video games and increased aggression, correlation does not equal causation. Think about it. Millions of people worldwide play video games, including those with violent themes, without becoming violent in real life. Just like watching action movies or listening to heavy metal music, playing video games is a form of entertainment. It's a way to explore fictional worlds, challenge ourselves, and connect with others. Attributing real-world violence solely to video games ignores a multitude of other factors, such as social environment, mental health, and access to resources. Furthermore, research has shown that video games can have positive effects, improving cognitive skills, problem-solving abilities, and hand-eye coordination. Some games even promote teamwork, empathy, and strategic thinking. The key is responsible consumption and understanding the difference between fantasy and reality. So instead of jumping to conclusions about the supposed dangers of video games, let's focus on addressing the root causes of violence, poverty, inequality, lack of education, and mental health support. These are the real-world challenges that demand our attention and action. The idea that our intelligence is a fixed trait, like eye color or shoe size, is a misconception. Your IQ, or intelligence quotient, is not a static number etched in stone. It's more like a muscle that can be trained and strengthened over time. Our brains are incredibly adaptable organs capable of forming new neural connections throughout our lives. This phenomenon, known as neuroplasticity, is the reason we can learn new skills, languages, and adapt to new environments. Every time we learn something new, our brains rewire themselves, creating new pathways and strengthening existing ones. Think of it like this. Imagine your brain is a vast network of roads. The more you travel on certain routes, the wider and more efficient those roads become. Similarly, the more we challenge our minds, the stronger our cognitive abilities become. This means that intelligence is not a fixed quantity determined at birth, but rather a dynamic and malleable aspect of ourselves. A stimulating environment, engaging in challenging activities, and maintaining a curious mind can all contribute to cognitive growth. So don't limit yourself with the belief that you're not a math person or not creative. Embrace the fact that your brain is constantly evolving and capable of incredible adaptation. We've all heard the warnings about alcohol being detrimental to our health, especially our brains. While excessive alcohol consumption can undoubtedly have adverse effects, the claim that it directly kills brain cells is an oversimplification. Here's the thing. Moderate alcohol consumption doesn't typically lead to the death of brain cells. However, it can damage the dendrites, the branch-like extensions of neurons that are responsible for transmitting signals between brain cells. This damage can disrupt communication within the brain, leading to cognitive impairment and other problems. Think of it like this. Alcohol doesn't bulldoze entire buildings in your brain, but it might knock down a few walls and disrupt the plumbing. This damage can impair brain function, but it doesn't necessarily destroy the entire structure. However, chronic and excessive alcohol abuse is a different story. Prolonged heavy drinking can lead to a condition known as Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, which involves severe brain damage and can result in memory loss, confusion, and difficulty with coordination. The good news is that our brains are remarkably resilient. If we moderate our alcohol intake and give our bodies time to recover, the damage to dendrites can be reversed and brain function can improve. Have you ever been told you're left-brained because you're analytical and logical, or right-brained because you're creative and artistic? This popular notion is a gross oversimplification of how our brains actually work. While it's true that different regions of the brain are specialized for certain functions, for example, language processing is primarily handled by the left hemisphere. This doesn't mean we have a dominant hemisphere that dictates our personalities and abilities. The reality is our brains are interconnected masterpieces, with both hemispheres constantly communicating and collaborating. Whether we're solving a mathematical equation, painting a portrait, or composing a symphony, both sides of our brains are actively involved. Think of it like this. Imagine your brain is a bustling metropolis with different districts specializing in various industries. You wouldn't expect the financial district to operate in isolation from the artistic hub, would you? They are interconnected and rely on each other to thrive. The left brain/right brain myth perpetuates a false dichotomy, suggesting that we are limited to one mode of thinking. In reality, our brains are far more complex and adaptable than that. We are capable of logical reasoning and creative expression, often simultaneously. So, embrace the full spectrum of your cognitive abilities. Don't limit yourself to labels like left-brained or right-brained. Celebrate the interconnectedness of your brain and the infinite potential it holds. This is perhaps the most pervasive and enduring myth about the human brain, popularized by movies and misinterpretations of scientific research. The idea that we only tap into a tiny as saying we only use 10% of a car's engine. Think about it. The human brain is an energy-hungry organ consuming about 20% of our body's energy, despite accounting for. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, it wouldn't make sense for us to have evolved such a large and complex organ if we were only using a small portion of it. The truth is we use our entire. Different brain regions are activated depending on the task at hand, whether it's breathing, reading, solving a problem, or dreaming. Even when we're at rest, our brains are busy consolidating memory functions. Imagine your brain different times depending on the musical piece. While the entire orchestra may not be playing every note simultaneously, each section is essential for creating the symphony. The myth is not only untrue but also incredibly limiting. It suggests that we have untapped potential just waiting to be unlocked, which is simply not how our brains work. So the next time you hear someone, the remaining 90% of your brain, remember this: you're already using your entire brain. Now you know the truth behind these myths. Next time someone tells you that you only use part of your brain, you'll be ready with the facts. Remember, understanding the reality of how our minds work is crucial for personal growth and societal progress. Do you have any myths you still believe? Comment below and let's debunk them together. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos where we dive deep into psychological truths and expose the myths holding you back.